Okay, so I'm back after a 1 week hiatus. I was in a foreign country being detained because Triple H decided didn't mark out hard enough when H returned. So, on to this week's Raw. It began with The Undertaker, essentially really shilling his match for against his Triple H, which is now a no-hold-barred match. Okay, should be an interesting match. Then we got to see the beatdown of Randy Orton by Nexus, which led to Randy Orton defeating David Otunga. Okay, great. Then what do we have? We had CM Punk again try to attempt to do the beatdown on Orton. Orton now has punted like his third member of Nexus. Now he's on the Mason Ryan and Punk. Christian came down. Great to see Christian in the ring again. I thought, great, finally taking Rosa Del Rio. This would be a great warm-up feud leading into Del Rio Edge at Mania. So he takes on Brodus Clay. Or Brodus Clay. I haven't watched NXT in quite some time. Decent match, Brodus essentially plays the large guy. He's like the white version of Viscera. Decent power wrestler. And Christian squeaks out a victory. Cool. So far you've kind of had Orton and getting the crap beat out of him, kind of have like a squash match. A fairly short match between Christian and Brodus. I'm like, alright, cool. And then Sunny is going to be in the Hall of Fame, which is good. Got to meet her. If you get a chance to meet her, she's actually really pleasant to meet and loves rock music. She was by far like the first actual diva era diva. There was a huge void that was left when people like Sherry were gone, Liz, gone from the E. Currently they're both gone, but she filled a really unique void. She's kind of like the first, like pre-Attitude Era diva. So it's great to see her getting inducted to the Hall of Fame. We're trying to figure out who in the world is left to induct her. Seriously, from her era, you've got like one half of the Legion of Doom left. You also have one half of the Body Donnas is left. Or did Skip die too? Most of the things that you really, did a lot with, really didn't do that much afterwards, which is always, kind of sad. The Eve Torres versus one of the Bellas. Yes, they're more interesting now that they're heels, but they're still not that interesting. And it was pretty much Cole talking about his match with Jerry the King Lawler, which kind of ruined this match, but the Bellas don't have that much actual chemistry in the ring. What helps them win is the occasion, like swap out, which Eve, stopped. And Eve has really decent finishers, but she just can't seem to string together an impressive enough match. I will admit she was in the ring with one of the Bellas, so it's probably not entirely her fault. And then it leads to one of the first giant returns. As Michael Cole was talking about who's going to be the special guest referee. And then who comes down? JBL. Of the wrestling god. It was so awesome to see him come down. It entirely made sense how come on birthday they were going to come down with the car. And he cut a really fantastic promo. If one thing, it really makes me miss JBL as even like, a color commentator. The guy was so good at his craft. It also made me think, if JBL were to go to TNA, how awesome he would be with Beer Money. Or, if Vince would ever be smart and create a tag division, and if he ever could actually sign Beer Money to the E, how awesome it would be to see JBL with Beer Money in the E. Because I think, with what he can do in the ring, and what he can do on the mic, and what he can get from the crowd, it's perfect. And then that's when Austin came down. I was never a huge fan of Austin. Sorry. I've been an H mark for quite some time. So I was never a huge fan of Austin. I never got the whole Austin thing. Yeah, it's great he beat up his boss. Yeah, he drinks beer. Yeah. Yeah, sure he's, domestic abuse on his wives. Yeah. I guess that's really cool, He actually pretty much is kind of like a redneck. Okay, it makes sense. Aside from him also driving like a NASCAR and having a monster truck, he's fairly redneckish. Yeah, I get it. Came down, attacked JBL, scared off Cole, made himself special guest referee. Now, it would have been cooler to have seen JBL, Swagger, Cole, and the millions and millions of coal miners be defeated by the King. In a very, super lopsided, how's the King going to win this sort of match. Now putting Austin in that, it's going to be weird because I don't think Austin and Swagger really have that much chemistry. And it's going to take a really good solid match between Cole and King and make it just really kind of bizarre. It would have made more sense to have had JBL and Swagger, so you're trying to constantly work over the King, so that way then Cole doesn't need to do that much. By putting Austin in there, you're going to kind of force Cole to hopefully do more in this match. And I don't know if he can yet. But that's for, mania predictions. And then it was Austin, drinking beer. I think it was Keystone Light. And pouring beer all over Michael Cole. And drinking more beer. Pouring beer on JBL. Running around smiling at the camera. And drinking more beer. Or should I say pouring it all over his shirt. Okay, you came back and you really didn't do much. You hit 2 stunners and you drank like a case of beer. Or poured it all over your face and down your shirt. Okay. The only bright spot from that is it made the King come out and do commentary. Okay, great. Daniel Bryan took on Sheamus. Sheamus got like an ankle injury and Daniel Bryan won via countout. So if you're keeping score at home, you got like Taker promo, JBL Austin Cole promo, and then like 4 really short matches. It's like, wow, okay. Sheamus has been on a losing streak, so he says if he can't beat Daniel Bryan to become U.S. champion, he's going to quit. Now I do think that Sheamus would probably fare much better on SmackDown right now. I think that a feud between like him and Kane, or even him and Taker, or even him and Barrett, him facing up against the Core, there's a lot of good workable stuff for him to do over on SmackDown. But on SmackDown, make him more kind of like upper mid, lower main event. Because currently on Raw, he's just not doing a whole lot. And it's kind of like, alright, so really no solid wrestling until we finally see Raw's latest acquisition, Dolph Ziggler, took on John Morrison in a fantastic match that really did show what those 2 guys were capable of doing. And then it was made mention that Vicky Guerrero wasn't hired with Dolph Ziggler, but she will be if she can meet Trish Stratus next week. Okay. So next week Trish Stratus is coming back. That should be interesting. But at the same time, next week's special guest host is Snooki. Why? Why would Vince waste his money on Snooki? I guess what, he's trying to copy TNA? If TNA wants to shell out money for somebody to walk down to the ring and not do anything and probably be drunk and relatively incoherent? So this time you're going to have one who's like, what, 4 foot tall, like 300 pounds. I don't care. I just want us, maybe Vicky Guerrero beat up Snooki. We can hope. And then we get down to the knockout shot between John Cena and The Rock. No, they didn't actually get in the ring. It was Cena cutting another promo in hip-hop form, not rap. It was fairly solid. I'll be honest, it does seem like Cena, playing from his own home turf, gets a much easier reaction by saying, Rock, if you love him, show up. The Rockster says, I bring it, just not in the ring. Just not to the fans. Or as Cena's shirt said, I bring it, via satellite. And it was good. Was it a solid knockout shot? No. Will it be interesting seeing what happens when The Rock finally shows back up? like he's currently slated to do, the Raw before WrestleMania in Chicago. And then after Cena did his tirade on The Rock, Miz, who was not supposed to be there, showed up and attacked John Cena. Cut a promo about how he's fantastic. Slightly ran on The Rock. And then hit the people's elbow on John Cena. He made a mistake, he used the wrong arm. It's always the arm you throw the band off of is when you're supposed to hit the elbow with. He made a mistake with that, but you know, as we're watching, like, man, he's got it at the people's elbow. And then he does. That was pretty solid. But I'm noticing this really bad phenomenon going into Mania. Vince is bringing out lots of, you know, older stars, which is good if you use them to push your newer talent. But you don't go from, like, having Austin and JBL in the ring to a count-out match. You go from Austin and JBL in the ring. That's then when you do your Ziggler Morrison match. That's when you really push some of your younger new talent. You know, you actually do something to make someone go, you like Stone Cold Steve Austin? Yeah. Here's what we're trying to do now. You know, that's what TNA made the mistake with. You don't bring in a bunch of, you know, older, more established talent, have them take up TV time, and then don't immediately capitalize on it in your next segment. And having guys show up and cut promos repeatedly? HBK cut a promo. But, you know, the match between Triple H and Taker, if you want to push it, you need to have Triple H show up and cut promos. Do I think they'll have an awesome match? Yeah. Does it need the amount of build they're giving it? Not really. Not that much. You could probably do less build-up for the H-Taker match, because people who are going to want to watch it know you're going to have two good wrestlers in the ring. And you're going to see these two people probably in what could end up being some of their last matches. Taker has got a shoulder injury that's been bugging him for I don't even know how long. So he's running on pretty much empty, to the point where he can't be operated on. It's that bad. H has mentioned he'll probably retire this year. You know, it's going to be like seeing these two gladiators probably in one of their last matches. Taker will probably retire after he gets the 20th win. But after his last match at Mania, he didn't really do anything for a year. He spent most of that year on the shelf. He feuded with Kane for the title, which he never won. And then he was on the shelf for like 5 months. H, after he lost at Extreme Rules, hasn't been back since recently. So he was out for what? Extreme Rules is like the month after Mania. So he's out for what? 9 months? You know, those two coming back and having a feud doesn't require a lot of work. It doesn't. It's a money feud by itself. You do more to push the other feuds going into it. Cole and King doesn't require that much more. You know, people knew that fight was going to happen. It doesn't need a lot of build-up. Miz Cena can use some more build-up. It really can. The Rock as a catalyst will be interesting. Will The Rock screw John Cena and allow The Miz to retain at Mania? Potentially. Could you do a little more build-up with Orton and Punk? Yeah. Do you need to build other matches for Mania? Yeah. It's weird, you know. They seem to be doing a lot less matches and just a ton of promo work. I know Vince wants people to be healthy for WrestleMania. But if they're not getting in the ring and doing anything, it defeats the purpose of watching a wrestling show.